Welcome, travelers, to another episode of the Time Travel Trio podcast. I'm Jen.
And I'm Matt.
And I'm Hyde.
And today we're going to be talking about 2009's Star Trek reboot.
Yes, directed by J.J. Abrams, starring Chris Pine, Zachary Quinto, and a whole mess of people we'll get into. But this movie was a reboot of the whole franchise. I think it was a pretty good reboot, too.
Mm-hmm.
I remember seeing it, not in theaters, but I saw it when I was with my brother at home. I think he had it on Blu-ray. And I think it was the first Blu-ray I saw on like his huge TV. And it blew me away because it was like,
It's a good one to see on Blu-ray, yeah.
It was a great movie to see on Blu-ray. And yeah, so I was like, this movie's great. And I was like,
Yeah, I saw it. I'm sure that we saw it in theaters, probably together, I would think, in 2009. We weren't friends then.
No, we weren't friends then. 'Cause I saw this in Cincinnati with my friends, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely saw it in theaters, though. And I had never been a Star Trek person at all and really enjoyed this movie, which is something I appreciated, that it was more relatable. You didn't just have to be a Trekkie, to get it.
Yeah, I agree. I wasn't much of a Star Trek fan either. I mean, I knew enough to know like the nods they made in the movie, but I definitely never watched the show or saw any of the movies. I didn't see any of the series actually. Yeah. None of the iterations.
I had seen a few episodes because my uncle was a big Star Trek fan, still is. But I had not really ever I used to see it because UPN used to play Star Trek: The Next Generation with not Captain Kirk, but Captain Picard, and I saw quite a few of those episodes growing up because I liked Eric. I mean, I grew up with Reading Rainbow, and I saw, I saw the Reading Rainbow guy was LeVar Burton was wearing that. Side note, I always thought LeVar Burton's character had Cyclops' powers because of that visor.
Totally.
It tripped me out. It took me years to figure out he didn't actually have the power because I remember one time he was in a situation where I think it was the Borg or something. And he was like, I'm like, just use your laser eyes. I'm thinking the whole time, just use your laser eyes. Just fire your laser. I didn't realize he was blind.
That's funny.
I love the Psych episode when, don't they have his eye thing? And
delays, right?
They're trying to run around, they break it, like an actual collectible.
It's a good episode.
That's
the
Freddie
Prinze Jr. one.
It's top 5 favorite episodes of Psych. On a side note, there, top 5.
What are your other 4 favorite before?
The lawyer, Weatherman lawyer episode, the original. The remake was interesting, but the original.
Okay.
I actually really loved the pilot episode.
Pilot's good.
The episode with Tim Curry.
Oh yeah, that's great. That's a great one.
And after that gets a little hard, but maybe it could change every day. But I love Psych the musical, and I also like the. I'm a really big fan of the last episode, actually. I think it was just a really well-done episode.
My all-time favorite Psych episode is Sean Takes a Shot in the Dark.
Yes.
I've seen it probably 500 times.
Well, it's well-acted and well-done.
It's so well done. So, I love it so much. That's definitely my favorite. But there's so many good ones.
Yeah, I like the Clue remake, or the Clue.
The Clue one is good, yeah.
That's a great one.
Which Tim Curry couldn't be at because he was already a character on the show.
I know, which is so frustrating. I wish they could have, found a way for his character to still... But didn't he went to jail or something like that?
Yeah, I don't remember.
Because he was a villain,
Oh, yeah, he was the villain. Yeah.
And also the Twin Peaks episode.
Oh, my gosh.
Which they did bring back who was actually Bob in the show, spoiler alert. But his character came back and was like, I'm here because,
Ray Wise.
Yeah.
Yes.
Ray Wise.
Who was
usually the pastor.
The pastor in the
Gus's pastor.
Priest,
right?
yeah.
Priest.
Another good episode.
Anyway.
We'll start about Psych.
Sorry, we like Psych.
Definitely should start a Psych podcast, though. I'm into that. But today we're here to talk about Star Trek. So...
Geeked out a little bit there.
Definitely seems like all of us had seen this before, rewatched it again. I still enjoyed it. I've seen this movie a lot, but I still enjoyed watching it, even though I knew it was going to happen. The acting is so well done that it's visually...
Well edited.
Candy.
Yeah.
I mean, the whole cast, the movie did a good job of showing Kirk and Spock's relationship growing together, but also displaying the strength of the cast. Like Sulu and Scotty and Chekhov.
Yeah.
And McCoy.
Everyone gets their chance to shine. And it never feels like, here's their moment to shine. It just, all of it flows naturally, and you can see why they're a team and why they make such a powerful alliance.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So with that, let's watch the trailer.
I couldn't believe it when the bartender told me who you are. Why are you talking to me, man?
Your father was captain of a starship for 12 minutes. He saved 800 lives, including yours. I dare you to do better. Enlist in Starfleet.
You will experience fear. Fear in the face of certain death.
Pull your chute!
We received a distress call.
I've been waiting for this day my whole life. This day of reckoning.
I've got no captain and no first officer to replace him.
Yeah, we do.
You are capable of deciding your own destiny. The question is, which path will you choose?
James T. Kirk was a great man. That was another life.
Airlocking torpedoes. Emergency evasive.
Fire everything!
That was a serious trailer.
That was a good trailer.
I remember seeing the trailer with the Beastie Boys in it too, right?
Yes, the Sabotage.
Yeah,
oh,
Sabotage,
yeah.
And well, it's funny because they brought that trailer back for the Star Trek,
which makes sense.
3
It
trailer,
keeps it going.
which people for some reason really don't like.
It didn't get me into it. The new one.
Yeah, the was directed by Justin Lin. So who knows? But side note about the music they use in this trailer. I love the music for this trailer so much. I actually have it on my iPod. Still listen to it every once in a while.
Okay.
I think it's just like really nice, like pounding beat for like it makes something epic. But side note as well, one of my favorite lines was actually, it may sound odd, but it was one of the lines that's really sold me on the film because at the time I was like wasn't very sure, and I knew a lot of Star Trek hardcore people were very nervous or like about the movie. It was a completely new cast and all this jazz, like new timeline. But I love the line from Bruce Greenwood, who's playing Captain Pike, when he says like, "Your father saved the 800 men. I dare you to do better." I'm like, man, that is like such a great line. Like that's like that's such a motivating like dang, you'd be like ready to do anything after hearing that. Like, oh, I gotta better go do this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, were you at that class when Michael Giacchino came and talked about his score for this movie?
Yes, of course.
That was really cool. And I asked him about the Lost Life and Death theme.
Well, I have all Michael Giacchino's, almost all of his big CDs I own or on my iPod.
Although it kind of felt like I love him immensely. I think he's, I think he does great work. But when I watched this movie this time, I heard a lot of Star Wars stuff.
You could hear he was. I mean, it's very obvious that Giacchino has been heavily influenced by John Williams.
Yeah,
there's no question. I guess what composer hasn't been.
Yeah, right. But no, I think it's good. It was cool to hear him. I'm just looking at, they actually have Winona Ryder in the trailer credits. That's kind of interesting. You honestly wouldn't even know that she was really in this movie.
Right. I guess her name still has has a big weight.
She's before Zoe's. Oh, I guess RS. It's alphabetical, I guess.
Oh, that's right. They always do alphabetical.
I was going to say, Zoe thought that should be way ahead of Winona Ryder on there.
That's right. Star Trek always is alphabetical.
Okay.
That's fair.
John Cho's
good for John Cho, yeah.
technically top bill.
No, I really like this movie.
It's a lot of fun.
So initial reactions looking at it analytically, how did you feel about it?
Yeah, I still think it's a good movie in general. I mean, the story is pretty, it's not bad. It's nothing we haven't seen before, I think, but it doesn't feel like it's boring or anything like that. It stays pretty active.
And it also introduces you to these characters for someone like me and some of us who are like very new to Star Trek.
We're on the fringe.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And can like learn, oh, that's that character that I've heard their name before. Like, you don't have to watch Star Trek to know who James T. Kirk is.
No.
Honestly, so that was cool. And I'm trying to think if you had to pick a favorite actor in their role in this movie, who would you pick? Because as much as I love Zachary Quinto as Spock, I love Zachary Quinto as Sylar more because he's so like talking about heroes, but he's so great.
You kind of at least in your view of him.
Yeah, at least in the beginning. Like even his IMDb picture is a Heroes promo.
That's funny.
But
I think Anton Yelchin as Chekhov.
I was going to say the same thing.
He's a lot of fun.
Really great.
He's almost like, if you didn't know Anton Yelchin, it's like he's just Chekhov. Like he's like he's got the accent going. He's got the mannerisms. Yeah. I also really, really, really like Simon Pegg as Scotty.
Yeah, of course. Simon Pegg is always good.
I'm kind of cheating because I'm also kind of going based off his performance in the second Star Trek, but he's just so enjoyable.
Mm-hmm. I really love Eric Bana. I thought he did a really great job in this movie. Like, in a surprising way that you almost, I don't know, if I hadn't, like, seen Eric Bana's name, I probably wouldn't really know that it was him.
No.
But, like, in a good way, that, like, his acting is really intense, and I don't know, I like feel he's the bad guy, but I feel for his character and I get why he does the things he does.
Right. Yeah. This was like, I mean, one of my notes about this was like, this was the year of like Eric Bana's comeback because he had been kind of shunned from nerd culture after doing the Hulk movie.
Yeah.
Which I don't know if you can really, it's not fair to blame it on Eric Bana. I mean, he was just one actor in a film, even though he wasn't.
He was kind of miscast a little bit.
He was definitely miscast, but it's like, he's not like it wasn't like he was the sole reason that movie was bad, and, but this was like a big comeback from, because this summer the same summer he did this, he also did Funny People with Adam Sandler and Seth Rogen, which was also another dramatic turn, and I'm pretty sure shortly after this, he had to time travel his wife. So all this kind of hit at the same time, and he was able to kind of like resurrect his career, make himself employable again.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, which good for him because I think he does have talent, and sometimes just gets maybe the wrong roles. But we have to talk about Chris Hemsworth and Jennifer Morrison birthing Chris Pine.
Yeah.
First of all, I believe it. I believe that that's what their kid would look like.
Yes.
Beautiful people making another beautiful person, sure.
Yeah.
I liked, it felt like a brief mislead a little bit when you first see Chris Hemsworth, because he's like, he just calls him Kirk.
Right.
You don't know.
Yeah,
so like immediately you would think James Kirk, this is him. He's, becoming the captain right now.
Right.
I'm seeing it.
And it's Chris Hemsworth, even though he wasn't like Thor at that point, he's still like, he looks like a leading man.
Pretty good looking, yeah. You notice someone like that. And he looks like a young, he looks so good in this movie.
He looks like a Liam Hemsworth. Current day Liam Hemsworth.
But less obnoxious.
An older Liam Hemsworth.
Yeah. But I love it. And then you see Jennifer Morrison and she's pregnant, and then you're like, okay, so what's going on? And she calls him George, and so okay, this was probably his father, and then they talk about the name, etc. He dies, and it's really sad.
What a great opening, though.
It still almost tears me up watching
it's
that.
Sad. It's Chris,
well done.
Actually, maybe some of Chris Hemsworth's best acting. And I don't mean that as an insult to Chris Hemsworth. I'm just saying, like, you only had 5 minutes for me to get sold on your character and, like, have an emotional connection, and he nails it. Like, I feel really sad for him and Jennifer Morrison, like, when he's, like, basically going to like ram into the giant ship to like just buy him time.
And you also see the villain in a pretty like direct way of, here he is, this is what he does.
This is the bad guy. He doesn't care who he's affecting. He does what he wants to do.
He just wants to destroy all of Starfleet.
Yeah.
Right. Like you see this giant space like fight, all these like this carnage, this emotional scene, all that happens before the opening title card. Like, and it's really well done because you're hooked. Like,
and then you're like all emotional, right? And then it's like the Star Trek logo, and then the music, and you're like, oh, okay, this is a kind of a fun movie. Okay, I'm okay.
Right.
Some Beastie Boys.
Some Beastie Boys. It like lightens it up. Yeah. But it's so good because you get it's so much better than if you had just heard what his parents had done, what his dad had done for him.
Yes.
Because you get a much better sense of his character, because I think if you hadn't seen it, he would be a little bit less likable, especially in the beginning, because he's like kind of a prick and like hitting on Zoe Saldana and like getting in bar fights, and he's like a schmuck to Pike and whatever.
Yeah, and you also understand when Pike talks to him, like, you know why Pike cares so much. It's not just some punk kid who has good scores in Starfleet. He's the son of this amazing, captain of...
And it's big shoes to fill, you know? And then you also think about, okay, so what would it have been like, talking about time travel, what would it have been like if that hadn't happened, if Nero hadn't showed up? So then he would have been born on the USS Kelvin.
Right.
Which would say something else about his character, even. You know, he was born in space anyway.
Which you can see happen in the original Star Trek series, because that is the original timeline.
The timeline? Well, cool.
Right.
Yeah.
Because, like, it's so interesting how, like, they play... I think it was it's just a smart idea, because if you keep with the original Star Trek timeline, then all the characters have to be exactly the same, and it's the same adventure that they've always seen, just with a bigger budget.
Yeah.
By changing this, by making a new time travel, this like Nero coming and disrupting a different universe and a different timeline,
and more than that, Spock.
Yeah, and Spock,
because he pushed Spock and Kirk to have a different friendship.
Yeah,
it's the same dynamic because of the same people, but it starts in a different way, and it has more. It might have more impact in a shorter time.
Yes,
because this one event happened, and they had to do this with Spock, the older Spock Prime, I think they called him. Who's Leonard Nimoy. He helps them become friends, like, right there in the first adventure they have.
Right, and Spock and Captain Kirk's relationship is very different in the TV show. In the TV show, Uhura and Kirk are a thing.
Yeah.
They the first interracial kiss on TV. It actually it got blacked out in the South. The South would not air the episode.
Which I think when they did it, they kind of sidestepped them kissing because they're under mind control, I think. So it wasn't their own choice. I think they were forced to do it from the character's perspective. But yeah, it was the first interracial kiss.
It was crazy. Not to go too far into the set, but like just thinking about like how progressive the show would have had a Russian in space during the Cold War, and that was a big thing by Gene Roddenberry to do, because a Russian had written to him and said Russians were the first people to get into space. You had to have a Russian in this future space program, and Gene Roddenberry used the show. In the future, America and Russia would work together in space.
Yeah, I mean all the races.
Right, exactly. Yeah. And William Shatner and I'm blanking on her name. I know her name. I'm like messing up. I'm sorry. But the original Kirk and Uhura, when they kiss, the actors doing it, they purposely because originally they weren't supposed to actually kiss. They were going to get close to kissing and then like stop. Because the show producers were worried that like it wouldn't air because they knew what was going to happen.
Yeah.
So what the actors did was that they messed up any take where they didn't kiss so badly that they had to only use the kiss where they take the take where they kissed.
Yeah.
That's funny.
So yeah, just a little Star Trek trivia there.
That's cool. Yeah, I thought it was interesting seeing Uhura's and Spock's relationship. We don't really get a lot of it. It seems...
Yeah, it's already been happening.
It's already been happening. It seems like student-teacher a little bit.
Yeah.
Which, sure, all right. You know, Zachary Quinto, girlfriend, I hear you. So, yeah, I liked that it wasn't... Because the typical thing would be for her and Kirk to be together.
Right.
And I like that it wasn't that.
Well, it also makes sense because Kirk is known as being like, very free with his women choices, you know. But it makes sense now because Spock, it makes sense for him to be with someone that's steady because he's logical, and Spock to be like, be with green girls and any girl that can walk or have organs.
But I also like that it shows that Spock does have emotions.
Yeah. This movie was very much about Spock.
It was, which I like.
Almost more than it was about Kirk.
I definitely think it was, because otherwise maybe it would have been Spock's family that was killed, and then Kirk, it's about Kirk saving something, you know what I mean? But I agree, I think it was very much about Spock and his history and his future, and changing that, and
yeah, it was a smart move, and it's an effective way to use time travel, because the time travel, really the main cast never goes through time travel, but yet they experience the consequences of time travel.
Yeah.
And they don't even know that they're experiencing the consequences of time travel.
Yeah, I like that the way that they use time travel to reboot the franchise in like the best way possible, because it showed that the whole original series still happened, and it even had Leonard Nimoy playing the older version of himself, which makes sense because it's 40 years since the show happened when this came out.
Which R.I.P. because he died.
Yeah. And so it made sense because it honored the original franchise, and then it brought back all the characters, and it kind of reset, saying, all right, now they're on a new adventure. You know, it was the genius way to bring back the franchise.
Yeah, and to introduce you to new characters. Karl Urban was great.
Yes.
Great in this movie. In the second one, they use like almost all the exact same quote unquote like jokes and like him getting annoyed and making these quips as the first movie.
Right. Which is actually from the original show too, so it's like...
But it's like, it feels so overplayed. Like, just because it's a throwback doesn't mean you can't, just do it a little bit sprinkled, but like have new stuff.
Well, I think the sequel does make a joke about it, because at one point he says he like does like 3 like analogies in like one like conversation with Kirk, and Kirk's like, and stop doing analogies, like that's an order, and then he doesn't do it after that because he's
funny.
like, I think he said something like, you just put Zulu and he has to play with like, and he has to pretend like he has a full deck of cards, and he's a good captain, but he's no poker player, and he's like, stop.
What are you doing? Yeah.
I wanted to mention the references to the present day in the bar, or her orders, or she mentions Kardashian sunrises as a drink.
I never caught that.
I don't think it's she doesn't say it Kardashian.
Well, I know, but it's like 100 years or whatever.
Kardashian.
They've been classified. They've been classed up.
No, but like I think she says it a little bit.
She says Kardashian, but like what else could that be a reference to?
Yeah, I'm with you. I think that it probably was.
She points it out as like, oh, and a Kardashian sunrise. Like, I mean, Also, Nokia was still around.
Yeah, I've had that note too. Like, my note was literally like Nokia would still exist.
Their phones do not break, people.
But that was like a touch. It was a touchscreen phone that he had. So
that's true. But those probably don't break.
But like I guess the funny bit was that's their ring, and everyone kind of like can recognize it.
Yeah, Nokia's like, I'm not changing. We're not changing. 100 years from now, we're still going to be the same.
130 years.
Damn
we don't care. Yeah.
In space, new creatures and aliens, Nokia's still the same. And your brick phone was still working. You can still play Snake on it.
In space, everyone can hear your phone ring.
Yeah, that's funny. I love that. And we just talked about Chris Hemsworth, but I love Jennifer Morrison a lot. House and Once Upon a Time, she's great. Did you listen to her on Nerdist?
I'm pretty sure I did. Yeah. Maybe.
She seems cool. Anyway, she's just in the beginning. She's his mom. Tyler Perry, of course, is in this movie.
Yeah, Tyler Perry.
Shocking audiences around.
And he TP. That's really funny. Sorry. I didn't like think about that before I said it, but now it's kind of in there. I think he's good. I like him in like a subtle, small role. Yeah, he has that authority.
He does.
This is one of the this is one of the movies. He did a couple of them where he's just being a normal actor and just like a normal person being serious and just not being.
And I think he's actually talented in more than just being Medea,
of course.
Which is good, in its own thing. But like I think he could do serious roles.
Yeah, I think I think it's like hard for him, I guess, to just be an actor sometimes because like he is so used to doing it all. Mm-hmm. But he's seen him do some pretty impressive stuff as an actor.
Yeah.
You could see him in the new Ninja Turtles movie.
That's right.
Baxter Stockman.
That's right.
Cool. Oh yeah, we saw that trailer.
Yeah, I'm totally gonna go see that movie. By the way, I'm totally gonna see it's Ninja Turtles. It's gonna be stupid. It's gonna be fun.
It's gonna be terrible.
Look, I mean, look, I grew up being Donatello for years for Halloween. I was a prime demographic for that original franchise. It's no longer for me anymore. I can admit that. I saw the original reboot. But it's just not for me anymore, And I'm okay with that. I have my Ninja Turtles that I can hold on to. This isn't for a new generation.
He has his T-shirts. He's good. Yeah. I did want to point out when we were talking about Nokia. So the voice of the stepdad, of Kirk's stepdad, is actually Greg Grunberg from Alias and I don't know, Heroes, I guess people know him from.
As long as JJ
He's in a lot of
work,
JJ.
Greg Gumberg will
He
have
made a
work.
cameo in Star Wars.
He was in Star Wars, yeah.
I would even say he's a little bit above a cameo in Star Wars.
Yeah.
Like, it's
He
like
had he was even in the new Heroes Reborn.
it was not
He was
that
one of the original. Yeah, I don't know, that's a whole other thing. But I heard the voice, and it sounded familiar, and I placed it as him, and then looked, and it was, and so I know my GG.
He does have a distinct voice. Like, once you heard him enough, he has a very distinct voice.
He does, and I've watched a lot of Alias, and he's in a lot of Alias. So.
And Rachel Nichols is in this from Alias,
Rachel Nichols, yeah,
playing the sexy green lady.
Yeah.
Sexy green lady.
The obligatory green lady of Star Trek.
If one thing the Star Trek and Mass Effect have proven to me is like I might have sex with an alien.
Yeah, but if there's,
like,
well,
if they look like that, I'm like, hey, look,
good, yeah.
green skin. Look, I mean, there's some people get caught up about brown and white skin in this country. I can do a green. Like, let's go for it.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
Sorry, they got tentacles on their head. Whatever, cool.
It's like if anything we've seen from Kirk in all of his iterations is that it doesn't matter how many legs they have or what color their skin is. If they have sexual organs, he's all for it.
He's a true egalitarian.
Yeah.
Simon Pegg, I think, is cast really well as Scotty.
Yes.
I think he does a great job. Really, there isn't someone that I'm like, I think that person is kind of wrong.
It's a pretty solid cast.
Bruce Greenwood is great.
Yeah.
John Cho, I think, is even good. And you kind of, like, sometimes I look at him and I'm like, John Cho, but I'm like, no, okay, I can buy it. He's like Sulu.
When he puts on that suit, he really does become Sulu.
Fencing.
Yeah.
It was funny when they first casted him as they're like, but he's not Japanese. I think he's Korean.
Yeah.
But then like even George Takei was like, no, but Sulu is supposed to represent the Asian character in the future. So it doesn't matter if he's not Japanese. Like he's still this representation of them in the future.
Mm.
Yeah, I think it's good. They make their characters a little bit their own. You know, it's not just. I think a lot of the mannerisms maybe are channeling. What the characters we know, Leonard Nimoy and stuff. But they make them their own, and they have their own kind of personalities, which I think is important for new people like me to relate to. So, how do they time travel in this movie, Matt?
Yeah, this is probably really we have to get into kind of how, because the movie explains it with Leonard Nimoy and Eric Bana's character. It basically happens in the future because Leonard Nimoy, he has to save the Romulans.
There's a star that's exploding.
Yeah, it's going to go
supernova. And it's going supernova, which will consume and destroy anything that comes in its path, including the planet, stuff like that. So they ask Spock to save the Romulus.
Spock Prime says it threatens the whole galaxy, which a supernova is pretty deadly, but it wouldn't destroy a whole galaxy.
Right. Maybe a system.
It would destroy, of course it would destroy a whole solar system, and it could shoot off gamma ray bursts into different ways, but it's not going to destroy a whole galaxy.
How does a star become supernova?
When stars are big enough, they churn through all their energy. If a big star turns hydrogen into helium and it goes through all the different elements, if a star is big enough, our star won't get that far. It'll stop at I can't remember which element, but it'll just grow to be a red giant. But if a star is big enough, it'll go supernova because once it makes iron, it can no longer support itself against the gravity of its own weight. Okay. And so it then collapses in on itself and then explodes in this huge supernova.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so only the biggest stars in the universe can go supernova.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they ask Spock to...
Yeah, he promises that he'll save the Romulan people by taking what they call red matter and creating a black hole in the star before it explodes. Mm-hmm. And so he takes the fastest ship, and the way he explains it is that on the way there, the unthinkable thing happens, which actually is the thinkable thing because that's what he's trying to prevent. The star explodes.
I think unthinkable in the sense of I can't believe a planet was just destroyed. In that sense, not unthinkable that
how is this
would
happening?
Happen. No, I think more in a.
I think it had more time.
Okay. Yeah. I guess he could think it has more time. So on the way there, Spock tries to save them, but then of course the planet's destroyed, and then Nero sees it.
He's on a mining ship, which is this huge giant thing, and he sees it get destroyed, and his wife and his daughter, son, his kid.
Yeah, his whole
his
family,
planet,
including his
planet.
wife and child,
Yeah.
pregnant wife.
Yeah.
And so, of course, he blames Spock for not saving them. And then Eric Bana, who is Nero, he then vows to destroy all of Starfleet and all the planets that support
he takes
Starfleet.
it really well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Does not do well under stress.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so we have a clip of Spock. This is when Captain Kirk finds Spock.
He's not the captain at that point.
Sorry, Kirk finds Spock.
First officer.
And this is Spock Prime, and he explains why he's there from the future. And he does a mind meld with Kirk to explain it, because it makes more sense to just show him everything.
Yeah, he finds him because after Nero destroys Vulcan and sends Spock Prime to this planet to watch, young Spock and Kirk get in a fight on the Enterprise, and Spock maroons him to this planet, and then
Which is basically Hoth.
Yeah, it is. It literally is Hoth. There's like the same animal and everything. So, so Kirk finds, not on purpose, but he like manages to run into Spock Prime, runs into his cave because
and so this is the mind meld. This is Spock. This is Leonard Nimoy, Spock Prime.
Yeah, who obviously knows Kirk because they have their history, so he's happy to see him.
And this is, I guess, this is 100 years, or this is like way after
129 years.
Right. And I mean, Spock still looks like Leonard Nimoy, so I guess 50 years after the show happened, but 100 years, I buy it. He still looks old.
Yeah.
And so this is the mind meld of Spock explaining
he can like touch Kirk's brain, like head, with his hand, and like
it's the mind meld. Yeah, it's from the show.
Gives him, I don't know. Like I wouldn't know what that means.
Yeah, I know.
But it shows him his memories.
Right.
Basically.
Vulcans have the power to do this.
Yeah. Okay.
That's where I'm from, Jim. The future. The star went supernova. I promised the Romulans that I would save their planet. We outfitted our fastest ship. Using red matter, I would create a black hole, which would absorb the exploding star. I was en route when the unthinkable happened. The supernova destroyed Romulus. I had little time. I had to extract the red matter and shoot it into the supernova. As I began my return trip, I was intercepted. He called himself Nero. In my attempt to escape, both of us were pulled into the black hole. Nero went through first. He was the first to arrive. Spent the next 25 years awaiting my arrival. But what was years for Nero was only seconds for me. I went through the black hole. Nero was waiting for me. He held me responsible for the loss of his world. He captured my vessel and spared my life for one reason, so that I would know his pain. He beamed me here so that I could observe his vengeance. As he was helpless to save his planet, I would be helpless to save mine. Billions of lives lost because of me, Jim. Because I failed.
So, when Nero goes through 25 years before Spock Prime, he sees USS Kelvin, which is Kirk's dad's ship. And
the first scene of the movie.
Yeah, the first scene of the movie. It shows up. You can't hear it, but it just shows a clip of him destroying their ship and killing. Obviously, we know what happens.
Yeah.
But yeah, okay.
Yeah, so I mean, this touches on a few realistic, kind of time travel ideas. The red matter isn't really anything in real life. There is antimatter in the real world that it exists, not in any way that we can touch, but in the particle accelerators, they create it when they smash them together. But they vibrate, pretty quickly. Antimatter would be very destructive if we touch it. With real matter, they would cancel each other out and just cause a huge explosion. It would be, a little bit of antimatter with real matter would be like megaton explosion. It would level cities. So that concept of it touching real things like red matter is based in fact, but the creating a black hole and making a wormhole, that's a theoretical thing of like negative of exotic matter that has negative mass.
Okay. That
could potentially create a wormhole that you can use, but they're kind of mutually exclusive. I think if this red matter does exist, it would be kind of a fusion of both of them, like antimatter plus something that would be negative mass. But nothing that we know of can destroy matter so much like red matter and also create a black hole and wormhole, which black holes and wormholes are kind of related. So theoretically, it's kind of touching on a few realistic things, but it's more just like sci-fi, obviously. Yeah. But it's kind of touching on some realistic things.
That's cool.
And the fact that Nero went through a few seconds before Spock, which was 25 years, is relativity, Right. If the exit of the black hole or wormhole is somewhere in space that time travels differently than where Spock is, I mean, I don't know if it's seconds to 25 years, but that's also relativity, it can be, it's not that much of a jump.
Yeah.
To think it's possible.
Yeah, for sure. I really like the shot in that clip of Nero's ship going through and and the camera kind of turns to the other side of the black hole and you are expecting to see the rest of his ship, but you don't. And it's just like going through a portal. So it's like,
Right.
I like that a lot.
It's an interesting concept because it also gives you an idea of the psyche of Nero, that he's had the patience to wait 25 years.
Yeah.
Most of us in this room are barely over. I mean, all of us are barely over the age of 25. Imagine waiting almost your entire lifespan, just waiting for someone to come back so you can get revenge.
I mean, it also, explains things that he's patient, like you said, but also that he's had so much time to calculate his plan and figure, but he also probably went in there ready to go because he didn't know how long it would be till Spock showed up. He didn't know it would be exactly 25 years. Mm-hmm. What you're saying, it's relativity. So who knows? They kind of, I guess it seems to me they were kind of around for 25 years.
Mm-hmm. Probably just floating back and forth in that same...
waiting for
waiting for him to come out. So I like that. I think it's an interesting way to tell time travel. And to change all these events, and Kirk asked Spock Prime, did my dad see me, in Starfleet or whatever he asked? And he's like, yeah, he saw you become captain of the Enterprise and he's really proud of you. And you cite him as, the reason you joined and all this stuff. So you're like, ugh. But then you're also like, ugh,
Yeah, so I think as far as time travel goes, so far as we've seen in these movies, this is one of the more realistic approaches I've seen because it uses wormholes in a way that's I don't know, it's triggered and they also don't choose when to go. It's just they create a wormhole and then they just go through it and they end up where they
can't control where they're going or when they're going.
Which if you made a wormhole accidentally, that's kind of what would happen. I mean, unless you set them up at the same time and move one around like two portals. But if it just existed as a result of some black hole, then who knows where it would go.
Yeah. So, of course, as Hyde mentioned, the consequences are really what everyone else has to deal with.
Right.
That he doesn't care who he kills as long as it's not young Spock.
Right.
Which, I guess good eye on him, but for seeing that ship was the Enterprise.
Yeah.
But it easily could have been one of the ones he destroyed recklessly. Which,
True.
Wouldn't that have erased Spock Prime? Or would it have?
Well, this is the thing about the time travel. It creates a different timeline.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't have changed anything because we're dealing with parallel universes here. Or not parallel universes, perpendicular universes.
It's alternate timelines, which I feel like are the same universe, which kind of doesn't make sense. But it could, there's all these different ways to show multiple universes and all this different stuff.
Yeah.
And that's actually a question I wanted to ask you guys. I mean, do you believe in the idea, like the multi-universe, the multiverse theory, that there is a version of you in a different universe, different timelines, different universes where we've made different decisions, or maybe even completely different people?
I don't know if I necessarily believe that, but I like the idea of that. I like that there could be, I don't know, I'm thinking it kind of is reminding me of Looper, something like Looper, where, you know, it's the same person, but they have different memories, different experiences. So I guess I don't think it's super far-fetched. I like the idea that there's someone else out there who's Jen the lawyer, you know, or whatever.
Right.
Who likes cats instead of dogs. That would be weird, you know?
Do you believe in it, Matt?
Well, so here's the thing. I don't necessarily subscribe to the idea that every decision we make spawns a different timeline. You know, I don't think it branches off like that. I do believe in the multiverse because we thought we're the only planet around and there's more than one planet. We're the only star around, there's more than one star. There's more than one galaxy around, you know, all that stuff. And so why not think there's more than one universe? I don't think that it's based off of our universe, but the fact that there are infinite universes, mathematically speaking, means that there is one that has the exact same start as this one is, except for one difference.
Like Earth 1, Earth 2, and the Flash.
Yes,
exactly.
It's mathematically speaking, that's possible and totally valid. If there are infinite universes, then mathematically speaking, there's one that's exactly the same, except up to this point, I say the letter B instead of the letter C. You know, that, like, when you're dealing with infinity mathematically.
There's also that episode of Buffy, like The World Without Shrimp.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I also believe in similar to Matt on the multiverse. I do think that there's multiple universes. I'm not like hook, line, sinker sold on the idea.
Yeah.
But it makes sense that there would be. But it's like you'll never get to see it because I don't think there's ever going to ever be a way to do interdimensional travel.
There's no way to ever test it to confirm unless a wormhole does lead to a different universe, because in a black hole, it's a hole in space-time, so all of the laws of physics break at that point. So.
And even then, you would have to also come back for us to know that you went in the first place.
Yeah, exactly. You'd have to somehow get to Earth and say, oh, wait, this is like my Earth, but different in this way. Right. So, you know, we'll obviously never know that, but I do like the idea of a multiverse. Cause,
oh, wow, Harrison Wells is a good guy in this universe, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So scientifically speaking, it's, you know, it depends on how you want to think about it. I mean, is it the same universe, but now a different timeline? In which case, we don't need the multiverse, but, you know, then how do you distinguish between the two timelines? How does it affect the other one? So it all depends. I mean, that's kind of, they don't explain it in the movie, but it depends on how you want to interpret it.
I also thought it was interesting that, so the time traveler, as in Spock Prime and Nero, they keep their old memories. But Spock Prime, I guess we don't see a different Nero, but we see a different Spock. Spock Prime doesn't have these new memories that our Spock, Zachary Quinto, is creating.
Right.
He doesn't know, you know, Kirk tells him, no, you're the captain of the Enterprise, and he's like, no, you are the captain, you know?
Right.
Like, he doesn't, it's not like Looper, where Bruce Willis can, you know, see these new events occurring that JGL is doing. It's, like, totally separate. Like, they're two separate people, but they just happen to also be the same.
Right.
Person, but different memories.
Yeah, it's a true alternate timeline that Looper isn't, for sure.
Yes. I really liked, this isn't necessarily time travel related, but I really liked the fight that they had after Vulcan was destroyed. The fight on the ship between Kirk and Spock. I thought it was really well done. Good scene. Yeah. You saw both of their passion when, you know, Kirk gets mad and Spock holds his ground, and
Well, it was great because before that fight, this was after Spock Prime tells Kirk about all this stuff. And so he's like, how do I get you to, like, because Leonard Nimoy says, you need to become the captain, use this initiative or use this directive. Here's how you do it. He said, show that I have emotion to this case or to this event, and I will be no longer captain. And Kirk's like, how do I do that? You're emotionless. He's like, no, I have emotions, because he's Spock as well. He knows what it feels like.
Yeah.
And so now Kirk knows what he has to do, and so he riles up Spock, young Spock, to make him beat him up, essentially.
And it's really intense because there's a lot of other people in the room who just kind of watch.
Right.
You know? And, like, he could easily have killed Kirk, and his dad stopped him. His dad's what it seemed kind of like his dad was like, Spock, you know, don't.
Side note, I do like the Star Trek universe, like this new Star Trek universe, has just decided that Kirk is a terrible fighter, like in hand-to-hand combat. Like he, if you watch the films, even the sequels, Kirk almost never wins a hand-to-hand combat fight. I don't think he ever really does win a hand-to-hand combat fight. He always loses.
I've never thought about that.
Because he just, I think it's very interesting because, you know, you watch like the original Star Trek and like everyone always like make fun of like those very clunky Shatner fights, like the guy in the lizard suit. Like,
yeah.
And so I almost feel like it was like some sort of in-joke that like Kirk really can't fight.
Oh, interesting.
You know?
I mean, he does kind of well in the first bar fight.
Yeah, he does. I mean,
until he's
considering,
outnumbered,
it's considering how many men he's taking on, he's actually holding his own pretty well.
Yeah, but the fight on the drill, Sulu saves the day. He kills both the guys, you know.
Yeah, that's true.
And then Kirk, the only reason Kirk wins when he's inside the mining ship is because he's able to get the gun off the guy. Like when it goes hand-to-hand combat, he loses, gets his butt kicked by Spock. Though to be fair, Spock can also defeat Khan. So
but also in that fight, Kirk was wanting to show that Spock was emotional, so he let him beat him up.
He puts his guard down. He only like offers token resistance.
Yeah, he just saved his nose from being broken. Essentially, he was letting them have free reign.
So obviously, the time travel is relevant to the story. It affects all of our characters and creates this new reboot timeline, which I am gonna go ahead and say inspired X-Men: Days of Future Past.
You may have. Who knows?
I mean, it seems like.
So there's a Days of Future Past storyline in the comics.
Yes.
So it's a little bit
But
different.
they also, I don't know. I mean, I can't speak for them, but...
It's using time travel to reboot a franchise.
To reboot the franchise.
Right, I get what you're saying. Like, it was a smart move. It was Bryan Singer was able to come back and like kind of like say,
his justice,
I'm back. Let's get everything back on track here, people.
Yeah, which we'll definitely do an episode on that because I absolutely love that movie, specifically the Rogue Cut. Which is basically just the director's cut. But, I mean, their time travel in Star Trek isn't super... Like, once it happens, and that's pretty much it.
Right.
So there's not a ton for us to kind of delve into.
Yeah, the reason why it happened and what it did was interesting, but after it happens the first time, now we're just setting the stage for the new cast.
Right.
Yeah. But I thought it was interesting. Spock Prime says he's traveled 129 years from the future. But, so do people not really age?
Well, he's a Vulcan. I think Vulcans age. I think they age better than humans.
Yeah. Like
same with Eric Bana. Like 25 years, he still looks the same.
Yeah.
I think some aliens age better than humans.
Yeah, I think the Vulcans have like, and Trekkies and Trekkers are going to kill me if I get this wrong, but they have like, I think they look like, what was like 150, 160?
Trekkers like hikers?
Yes, no, seriously, no. And there's a difference, apparently. There's a difference. I don't know the difference. I'm sorry for the ignorance. If you are angry at me, hit me up on Twitter and explain the difference between Trekkie and Trekker. I would actually like to know.
Okay.
But, and someone please tell me what the average lifespan is, but I'm pretty sure that several races in the Star Trek universe, some of them can double, triple the lifespan of humans.
Okay.
Yeah, humans are just what we know,
Yeah. So... Kirk potentially could have been dead.
I'm pretty sure he's dead.
Well,
okay.
If not by old age, then by some STD he's kind of.
Not to get too far into it, but in the Star Trek universe, in one of the last movies, William Shatner's Kirk does get killed and sacrificed.
Oh, that's
sacrificial moment.
With Khan, right?
No. Well, yes, but there's
that's right.
In a further movie. I won't spoil it.
That's right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because they harkened back to Khan in their second movie of the reboot.
Yes.
With they homaged the scene with Kirk and Spock.
Right, and they swapped. They swapped
it, yeah, from the original.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So, any other notes that you guys wanted to hit on? Were there other throwback lines that you wrote down that you liked?
Yeah, I mean, all the McCoy stuff was great. You know, he's like, "Damn it, Jim, I'm a doctor," or not. He says, "Damn it, Jim," and I think at one point he says, "I'm a doctor, not a whatever."
Yeah.
I love the line that he said.
Not a physicist, I think.
the line that I think Spock says something, and he says under his breath, he says, "green-blooded hobgoblin." I thought that was a great line, a great diss because he had the pointy ears and he has green blood. So
yeah,
that was a great diss.
Yeah. I thought I read, I might be making this up, so please correct me if I'm wrong. I thought I read that the line, "beam me up, Scotty," that exact wording was never actually correct. They don't have it in this movie, but like, I don't know, I feel like for some reason I read somewhere that like, "beam me up," but I don't know.
Yeah, I heard that too.
Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. I've heard that phrase that everyone knows isn't a true theme from the show, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why not, but I guess maybe they just say "beam me up," but never Scotty afterwards.
Because he's the one that's doing it. Yeah, I don't know.
Right, it's like how everyone gets like the Darth Vader, like, "Luke, I am your father." Like they get
Yeah.
that wrong. It's like one of those things like everyone gets the gist of it, and it's just become more popular saying it in a certain like paraphrased way.
Yeah. I don't know, I'm not super familiar with it, but there were definitely lines you could kind of tell were throwback nods.
Yeah, they
and
kind
stuff.
of let them breathe a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Or at least references like Sulu in the fencing comment, because obviously George Takei is a badass fencer.
Yeah.
And so his character in the original is a badass fencer. And so they brought that back, which I actually want... I want that sword he has. It like folds out.
It was really cool,
Yeah.
Such
right?
a cool sword.
I want that sword.
In the third movie, I hope we get a sword fight between Sulu and someone. Come on, like, just let it happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I also love, "I'm giving her all she's got, Captain."
Yeah, that's a good one.
Course, yeah, that's a classic.
Cool. I think those are all my notes. Do you guys have any other notes?
I before I knew it was actually him. The little character, Keenzer, who's with Scotty, the little alien guy. So this came out 4 years after Willy Wonka did, and Deep Roy was all the Oompa Loompas in that movie.
Yeah.
And so when I saw this movie, I was like, I bet you that's Deep Roy, the guy who did all the Oompa Loompas. He has all his makeup on. And I looked it up, and yep, it's Deep Roy.
Wow.
There you go. Wow.
Yeah, he
That's a fun fact.
had a good string of playing all the midgets in movies. Or
Cool.
little person, sorry. So, yeah.
That's
The
awesome.
Oompa
That's
Loompa
cool.
was in this movie.
Interesting. Simon Pegg didn't audition for the part. He simply received an email from J.J. Abrams asking if he'd like to play Scotty. Pegg said he would have done it for free or even paid Abrams to be in the movie if he wasn't offered a part. That's
I believe that.
dedication. This is the feature film debut of Chris Hemsworth.
Wow.
That's interesting.
Wow.
I like when he dies, and I'm like, no, it's cool because Odin will save him, and then he will become Thor, and we're good to go.
So what was Chris Hemsworth doing before this? Was he on TV?
He was in Australia, like...
Oh, soap opera, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. That's funny.
Yeah, there's a lot of cool like trivia and quotes and stuff on IMDb, so if you guys want to read more of those, they are on there. Some like interesting quotes. The first time Zachary Quinto met Leonard Nimoy on the set, Nimoy said to the young actor, "You have no idea what you're in for." To perfect the Vulcan salute, Zachary Quinto had his fingers glued together. Interesting.
That's funny. I did love the ending VO voiceover by Leonard Nimoy, because that's the words that that's the from the original show.
Yeah, the motto.
And it's like it's his voice, and it's like the end of the movie, and it's all like emotional. And if you love Star Trek, it's just like it hits you right in the heart.
Yeah, it's like when I heard in Days of Future Past when Professor X was doing the voiceover narration in the beginning, it felt like the old X-Men movies.
It did.
Yeah, those were good.
I think this did. I mean, I know a lot of like hardcore Star Trek fans are upset with some of like the changes in this, but for someone who is not necessarily a Star Trek fan, but like enjoyed it for whenever I caught it, it's like, the old Star Trek had its time where it was its own thing, and this movie I thought was very smart in creating a new storyline that said we're not stepping on anything that was made before. It's like, this is not going to change what you experience. We're just making a new story with some of the characters you love and tweaking them a little bit.
Like, if you love the original series, it still happened, it's still real,
Right.
But now these characters are on a different adventure. Right. After the original Spock, Leonard Nimoy changed things.
Right, they're not putting the saint elsewhere. And this was something that like people did, unlike kind of comparing to Days of Future Past. Days of Future Past, people wanted the change. They wanted him. Yeah, they wanted him to come in and fix this. Like, fix it, please.
Yeah, that was a mercy killer right there.
Right. So this is a lot different circumstances.
A few other little trivia things. J.J. Abrams' only 2 choices for Nero were Russell Crowe and Eric Bana, who I think Russell Crowe probably could have done a good job at it too.
Yeah, you think he could have?
Chris Pine and Zachary Quinto knew each other because they used to work out at the same gym before they did this movie together. The film is dedicated to Gene Roddenberry.
Ooh, I like this little trivia note. Between scenes, Anton Yelchin, Bruce Greenwood, and John Cho played chess against each other.
That's cool.
One thing I also wanted to mention is that this is actually from Neil deGrasse Tyson. The drill they had that drilled to the core of the planet to deposit the red matter.
Oh, yeah.
You don't need to drill that because the red matter creates a black hole, and it would still do the same thing on the surface of the planet.
Oh.
Wasn't there another movie?
It creates a cool action sequence, but as Neil deGrasse Tyson says, just put it on the surface of the planet, it'll still destroy the planet. But then you wouldn't have the whole...
But then you don't get that cool drill, man.
You don't have the cool drill thing.
You got that giant ship, you might as well use it.
Wasn't there another movie, either that we reviewed or that we've, as friends, have talked about that used a really similar thing, a drill that builds a hole in the planet? And because I distinctly remember being like, oh, they're copying that from Star Trek. I don't remember what it is.
We haven't done it for the podcast. I can't remember right now.
I don't know.
What that is.
I'll see if I can think of it.
Someone read our minds and tell us what the movie we're thinking.
Please, yeah. Anyway, I think that's all we have. The Rotten Tomatoes rating for this movie is 95%.
Nice.
Which is very high, but I think that's pretty well earned. It's a good movie, so...
And 91% of the audience liked it, which I agree with.
Yeah.
Critical consensus says... Star Trek reignites a classic franchise of action humor, a strong villain, and brilliant visuals, and will please traditional Trekkies and new fans alike.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so let's do our...
Oh, would you guys want to experience the time travel?
Oh, yes.
As Eric Bana did, or as Leonard Nimoy did?
Heck no. That sounds miserable. You lose everything you ever know, and you just go into the past, basically.
Yeah, there's
Eric Bana,
lose-lose.
Well, as Leonard Nimoy, I think I might.
But you still see Vulcan destroyed, so that's your home.
Yeah.
You know, and you can't really interact. I mean, you can. I guess he says there aren't really consequences if you meet yourself, but
yeah, actually, it's funny because there's a line that when Spock and Spock Prime talk, he asked, why did you have Kirk do it, and like, how come you didn't tell me? He's like, well, Kirk was led to believe that if he did tell you that you met me from the future, that it would destroy the universe
and end in a paradox, a time paradox.
And the Spocks were like, which we know wouldn't happen. They kind of looked at each other like, oh, okay, that's something Kirk would believe.
But his reasoning was that Kirk and Spock need to build their relationship together. So
yeah, so that was pretty funny. Like, well, Kirk believed it, which most people would in that case. Like, it would destroy things, but like Spock's sort of just like,
Spock's like, no, it wouldn't really.
So I think we all agree that neither as Leonard Nimoy or Eric Bana would we want to do that time travel.
Yeah, I mean, Leonard Nimoy has a cool thing now where he can now preserve he's now going to join the Council of the Vulcans. But it's pretty shitty to lose your whole race.
Yeah, I don't think that's worth it. Just to time travel back to a time that you've already experienced. So, final reviews. Who wants to start?
I'll start.
Hyde?
As a movie, I give this pretty high rating. I'll give it an 8.5. It's a very enjoyable film. It's really rewatchable. Rewatching it again, it's like still just as fun. It's exciting. It still gets the blood pumping. Well acted, perfectly cast, pretty much. I mean, not really a weak link in the chain. Great music. It's just one of those films I really enjoyed.
I agree. I'm going to give it my movie rating a 9 out of 10. I think it's a really strong movie. I agree. It is very rewatchable. There's a lot of funny moments, so it doesn't feel heavy or super I mean, it's sci-fi. It's a Star Trek movie, but it doesn't feel unrelatable. These characters are still very human, and even the ones that are alien still have a lot of human qualities, and it follows Spock, and we see that he's half human and all this stuff, so I felt it was really relatable, and I could see who these characters were, which is something that I really appreciate about a movie, so I liked it a lot.
Yeah, I agree with Jen. I give it a 9 out of 10 because all those same reasons. The cast is solid. It did a really good job of rebooting the franchise in a smart way. Yeah. It's fun, action-packed. When I first saw this, it blew me away. I mean, I had no idea what to expect, really, besides Star Trek. But I saw it pretty much by myself and my brother. in Blu-ray on this massive TV, and just like so the whole thing just drew me in and blew me away. So I give it a 9 out of 10. I mean, you understand, Kirk's life, and you understand Spock's life, and the whole cast is just it's a pretty solid movie. So good job, JJ.
Yeah. Hyde, what's your time travel rating?
Yeah, I'm actually going to give the time travel a pretty high rating because I'm going to give it a 9 because it's so well executed. It doesn't go too much into this crazy stuff where like you get a lot of plot holes because of the timeline. It was such a smart move, story-wise, like as a writing and plot device, but also on a business like standpoint of like how to reboot the franchise. Like it's just one of those things. Like whoever came up with that idea really like nailed it. It may sound simple, but the fact that it is so simple actually makes it really genius. So I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10.
I agree with you. I think, I don't know, I kind of had a hard time because there's not a lot of time travel, but there's also like, it's what is there is really well done, I felt like, and is a strong consequence of the story, and I really like seeing consequences of time travel. So I'll probably give it, I think, an 8 out of 10.
Yeah, so I'm going to go mostly for the science part of it all because as a movie kind of tool, it doesn't use it that much to kind of, besides rebooting the franchise in a smart way, like you said. But the scientific way they show it, you can't have a black hole that destroys a planet and then just go through it as a wormhole. It would destroy you too. But looking past that one little scientific fact.
Little tiny fact.
Yeah, but I like that they have something that's kind of based in reality and then also kind of sci-fi. It's a good little leap from reality to sci-fi, and it's in space, and it's kind of the closest we've seen so far, I think, to time travel, in that it just creates a wormhole and they go through it and they're just in a different time in the same universe. I think it's a really cool way to show time travel, at least from a science nerd perspective. So it's not totally realistic, but it takes enough from reality to kind of say, oh, cool, they did something interesting with it. So I'll give it a 9 out of 10 as well.
Cool.
Yeah.
So, I'm really excited. Hyde, what movie did you pick for our next episode?
I chose the 2012 film Men in Black 3.
Yes.
I like this film. I actually saw it for my aunt took me there for my birthday that year.
You have really specific memories of seeing movies.
I do.
It kind of blows my mind.
If I see a movie, I can actually remember where I was in life
and who you were with,
like who I was with by seeing a movie. Like it's like a big deal for me. I know like there's been talk now about like they want to like try to make this thing so like you can watch a movie that's in theater at home.
No.
And my whole thing about that is like, here's what I'll say to this. I know there's some really big names who are behind it, and I think I understand what they're doing. They're panicking. They're thinking, oh no, we're losing ticket sales. It has nothing to do with that. It comes from oversaturation and just movies people don't want to go see. They always get nervous about this every year around January and February because no one goes to see movies.
Because only the bad movies are released January and February. Yeah.
And then by the time August rolls around, they're like, oh, like we've had actually a 4% growth in ticket sales.
Yeah, last year there's so many huge movies that came out.
Right. It's just a bunch of malarkey. But I will say this. Okay, now you have food in your refrigerator, but you still go out to eat, don't you?
Yes.
That's my whole thing about the movie theater.
I love the event of seeing a movie in theaters.
Yeah.
Like, I want to, not like I dress up all fancy or anything. Usually I'm wearing sweats, but I like going out of the house to see a movie, see this big screen, and like sit in those chairs. I love it.
Well, I'm excited to do this movie. Men in Black 3 was one of those surprise movies for me. I had heard good things about it going in, but I was really nervous after Men in Black 2, which I wasn't like a big fan of.
It was, that was really bad.
I love the first Men in Black, considered a classic. So going to Men in Black 3, and not to spoil my review of it, but it really redeemed the franchise, I thought. I know that they're talking about doing a crossover between 21 Jump Street and Men in Black that won't have Will Smith or Tommy Lee Jones in it. It's just going to be like Jonah Hill and them with like kind of the grunts of Men in Black, which I'm actually okay with because there's a lot in that universe of Men in Black that you could play with.
Yeah.
But I thought this was like if they never make another Men in Black movie like with Tommy Lee Jones or Will Smith, I'm totally and 100% happy with how it closed out.
Josh Brolin was such a good
Josh
Tommy Lee Jones.
Everyone in the world was like, what? Like, we knew, okay, I mean, like, Josh Brolin, he's not, like, a schmuck. We know he's a good actor, okay?
Right.
But
he was Tommy Lee Jones.
He channeled Tommy Lee Jones so specifically
like his
well.
voice was to a T.
To a Tommy Lee Jones.
Not even just his voice, but, like,
the
his mannerisms, yeah.
Roger
like
Ebert thought that they had done. Robert Ebert thought that they had had Tommy Lee Jones dub over Josh Brolin.
That's great.
It was so good.
This is probably, and I don't want because we'll get into this next time, but this is probably one of my favorite movies that we're going to be reviewing.
Interesting.
On the
Okay.
podcast.
It's a really. I don't want to hype it up for people who have not seen it, but if you haven't seen it, go out and see this movie, especially if you were nervous to see it because of Men in Black 2.
Yeah.
It is really worth watching.
And, have you seen it?
Yeah.
Okay.
I was working at Sony when it came out, and I think I think Sony ImageWorks did the visual effects for it, or at least part of it. And so I had a free screening of it, and I love the first movie. I love Will Smith. Like any movie that Will Smith did that he had rap song for, I was 100% in love with. like Wild Wild West. Like Jen, you see me performing in karaoke. I know it.
I saw it. Yeah.
Will Smith. I grew up watching Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. Like Will Smith, kind of raised me in a way. I mean, obviously I had parents that were good, but I watched Fresh Prince so much as a kid, and so when Men in Black came out, I was on board with it. And the second one, of course, wasn't that good, and the third one was good. So
I feel you on that, Foreman.
So do you want to read the sentence synopsis of this?
Agent J travels in time to Men in Black's early days in 1969 to stop an alien from assassinating his friend Agent K and changing history. Stars Will Smith, Tommy Lee Jones, and Josh Brolin. Directed by Barry Sonnenfeld. Written by Ethan Coen and Lola Cunningham. So yeah,
cool.
Excited to see this.
So definitely check that one out, and that will be out as our next episode in 2 weeks. So I think that's all we got. Social media, we are at Time Travel Trio on Twitter and Instagram. So please follow us. We like to post and do stuff on there. And on Facebook, we are the Time Travel Trio Podcast. And we are available on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Stitcher. So rate, subscribe, and follow us on those. Obviously, it's all free. And personal...
I am at Foreman in Space on Twitter and Instagram.
I am at Jen Marlis on those.
I am at Robinson is Hyde.
Yeah, and with that, we are out of time.